noticed that we're going to have some issues with this. My cameras have been really bothering me, shutting off when they shouldn't, so there's going to be a lot of shots of me looking over here like an idiot. So if you want to see my profile, most of this video is going to be profile, unfortunately. I'll try to edit around me just looking in the wrong direction here and there, but bear with me while we get this started, and hopefully most of this is audio, probably for you guys, so, and some video clips, so hopefully you won't see too much of me screwing around. Hey guys, what's up? It is 4:67. This is the week after Wasteland, so I have a decent size update here. But let's jump right into the movies. And the first one up is from 1987. It's Arrow Video. And this is a Joe Dante classic. But aren't all Joe Dante's movies classics? It's a 4K of Innerspace. Yeah, this one here is one that was kind of a TV classic. And when it was initially released, it didn't do all that well. The studio knew the movie was good. They seemed to really like the thing. It even won, I think, an Academy Award for special effects. But yet it just really didn't do very well in the box office and kind of had a second life on cable and on VHS. So it's kind of a redo or almost a comedic kind of take on the Fantastic Voyage, which is a movie where they shrink, these guys down to kind of save somebody and go inside the body. Magic School Bus did it as well. And, Fantastic Voyage is a sci-fi classic that I don't think I've seen, maybe parts of it here and there. But Innerspace was one that I would catch on TV in parts, bits and pieces. It was a very familiar movie with me, and probably seen it once or twice, maybe as a young child all the way through. But the one thing that stands out for me on Innerspace is the fantastic cast. It's produced by Steven Spielberg. So you guys know that you're going to kind of get that certain feel. Almost all the movies he produces, touches, have a certain Spielberg feel or a moment or two that are very much kind of in his vein. Poltergeist, the ghost kind of coming down the stairs, people would argue more, and stuff like that. The Goonies has it. But Joe Dante's definitely shines through here. You see like Bugs Bunny and all sorts of stuff that, it's just such Joe Dante touches in the film. The cast also stands out. That's the number one thing for me, to be honest. So you have Dennis Quaid, who's doing a pretty good job in the 80s. Dennis Quaid's one of those actors that I've never really had like a super big affinity for, but I've always enjoyed, and I've always thought he was a solid, good actor. You also have Martin Short and kind of the lead role along with Dennis Quaid, and he's of course a comical actor from SCTV. And hell, I think that Martin Short was one of the only guys that do SCTV and SNL. But just a good actor, of course. A lot of energy. Three Amigos, tons of stuff. So perfect for this role, actually. Then we have Meg Ryan as Dennis Quaid, the kind of double love interest here. So Meg Ryan starting out early in her career. And kind of as the baddies, we got kind of a trio of great actors. Kevin McCarthy, who Joe Dante used a lot. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And of course, from Ghoulies 3, everybody's favorite. Then we have Fiona Lewis from stuff like Drum and Strange Behavior. Underrated actress, I believe. She's in Strange Invaders as well from 83, if I'm not mistaken. And also we have Vernon Wells as kind of like the henchman, a great kind of villain from Commando and Road Warrior, stuff like that. Also, you see Henry Gibson, Wendy Shaw from The Burbs, and am I missing anyone in this? Oh, you'll recognize Harold Sylvester from I think he was actually in Married with Children, where I remember from. But here's kind of the plot here. They're working on kind of shrinking Dennis Quaid, who is this he's great at what he does, but he's an alcoholic. He's kind of a fuck up. He's a screw up. But they are going to use him for this experimental kind of crazy thing where they're going to shrink him down and put him in a rabbit. But the bad guys, Kevin McCarthy and company, want to steal the kind of deal. And it's two pieces, one that shrinks you down, one that pops you back up. They end up stealing one, but while they're trying to get the other, the scientist, who actually is longtime Joe Dante cinematographer, not doing cinematography on this one, actually takes it and runs away. And he has a kind of an injection, and he ends up giving an injection into Martin Short while he's running. Martin Short plays kind of a kind of like little nervous kind of a store clerk, always has anxiety, stuff like that. And we kind of hear what's going to happen. Dennis Quaid gets in him, and you kind of get the idea that Dennis Quaid's going to bring this little guy out of his shell while he kind of falls in love with Meg Ryan as well, and they both have that going on, and they have to save the day against the baddies. A lot of fun hijinks ensue. The special effects are amazing with inside the body. They do kind of like large, hearing about how they did it is very fun, because a lot of it's practical, you know what I mean? Most of this stuff is practical or has practical aspects to it, so that's always a nice touch. They kind of blowing up Jello and having it float through pools, just elaborate, wild, weird stuff that really works for the most part. I do think some of the stuff is not aged particularly well. I'm not talking about maybe the raunchy humor that's slightly in there, more aimed at PG-13 audience. I'm kind of talking about just like and I love 80s movies, but every once in a while there'll be a scene that's very 80s where like, that doesn't really work for me. The scene where Martin Short and Dennis Quaid get drunk together. He drinks it, and Dennis Quaid puts it out in his little spaceship and picks them up and drinks it. And they have like this weird dance scene where Martin Short has this giant dance scene. It's like this set piece for Martin Short to show off his comic ability and stuff, and it fits very much in 1987. I don't love it. I don't think it's horrible, but it definitely dates the movie in kind of a cringy way. There's also like a pregnancy scene that Spielberg definitely wanted to put in there because he just had a kid. So that's definitely that kind of Amblin magical stuff going on. Overall, I think that Innerspace is a fun, very competent movie. I think is very much a product of its time. I do think that Joe Dante is one of the best guys of the '80s, and I don't think he really got the appreciation he deserved until later. I mean, I love Burbs, I love Gremlins, Howling Piranha. Those are all great movies, and he did more than that. I enjoyed Two Small Soldiers. Explorers is an interesting one too, the one he made before this one. But yeah, he had a kind of a strange '80s run, right? What was the first '80s one? Would have been Howling, and then Twilight Zone, and then it would be Gremlins, and then Explorers, and then Innerspace, and then The Burbs, I think, or was there one in between that? But yeah, interesting, great career. As far as the special features, we have a slew of them. Brand new restoration, original 35 negative by Arrow Films, approved by Joe Dante. Dolby Vision, HDR 10 compatible, new restored lossless 72 stereo, original 70mm 6-track, mix in DTS MA 4.1 sound, and newly remixed Dolby Atmos audio options. Great sound mix options here. Sound really good. Optional subtitles, of course. Brand new commentary by film critic Drew McWeeny, and he's a Joe Dante super fan, and he gives a lot of love to this movie and breaks it. I think the commentary is pretty damn good. Archive audio commentary, director Joe Dante, Michael Fennell, producer Michael Fennell, visual effects expert Dennis Mirren, and actors Kevin McCarthy and Robert Picardo. I forgot Picardo's in here, another Joe Dante staple. Shrinkage, the making of Innerspace, a brand new hour-long documentary featuring newly filmed interviews with Joe Dante, producer Mike Fennell, visual effects Dennis Mirren, visual effects artist Harley Jessup and Bill George, and actor Robert Picardo. Unfortunately, no Dennis Quaid or Martin Short or Meg Ryan, but can you expect them to do this? Good hour making of behind the scenes at ILM, which is a premier special effects company. They pop up on almost all the movies that you rewatch. Previous on-scene footage provided by visual effects supervisor Dennis Mirren. Then we have original storyboards, continuity behind the scenes Polaroids, production stills, posters, theatrical trailer, tons and tons of stuff. Newly commissioned artwork by Doug John Miller, double-sided fold-out poster, collector's perfect bound booklet featuring new writings by film critic Charlie Bringen, Michael Doyle, Josh Nelson, Jessica Scott, Andrea Sabinasi, a short guide to Joe Dante's stock company by Scott Salzlow, plus the original exhibitor's pamphlet. Also, there is a making of behind the scenes, I think, from Joe Dante's personal video with Martin Short and stuff in there. And there's a really funny line with the cinematographer's great, where he's like, it's okay. It's okay. And with Kevin McCarthy, where they have to wait because rain, and there's a pause, and Kevin McCarthy says, when they're waiting, he says, champagne for everybody, and it's a good laugh. So, great release of a movie that I do like and have some appreciation for it. It's really well done, but it is dated, but that doesn't necessarily mean bad. I mean, you get to see the mall that every movie from LA or California was filmed in, the big, I can't, Sherman Oaks, is that what it's called? But Chopping Mall and Commando and Mausoleum, that mall is also used in Innerspace. Would recommend. This is a fun movie and a really great release of a movie that I think a lot of people do love. And if you're a Dante fan, then I think you should pick this one up. Okay, the next one up is from On Earth Films here, and this is a 1997 New Zealand picture, The Ugly. And this is a movie that goes back with me for a very long time, when there was this Boogeyman compilation, I think that Trimark or Vidmark put out. And they had a couple, the big names in there, Michael Myers scene, Freddy, Jason, all the big horror icons. But they threw a couple of the ones that they had licensed on there too, or had easy access to, like The Guardian, and of course The Ugly. So it was odd sitting in there, so you kind of like, what is this one? Amongst all these like classic films I've seen and heard of, I'm not really sure what The Ugly is. So I tracked it down on VHS, being a big fan of serial killer films. At that point, I'd probably already seen Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. So I put this in back then, and I immediately fell in love with The Ugly. Just the idea of it, the stylized nature of it, and it was pretty much kind of done in like an artistic art form, but it was dark and disturbing and basically a psychological thriller done right. And so many serial killer movies are like the kind of interview film, right? We have that big scene in Natural Born Killers. The final interview has the interview where the whole central plot kind of takes place. And The Ugly is the same way, but you're you're not exactly trapped in that kind of world, right? You're more free to go around and have flashbacks and whatnot. And this is where the ugly kind of lives. Now, the director basically stated that he didn't want to use all the certain colors. He wanted it to be very, very palette driven, and certain colors were used, like white and blue and stuff like that. And blue kind of shines through, but he didn't use a lot of green, fleshy tones and stuff like that. He wanted to have this cold, clinical feeling. So what we have here is, I'm not necessarily sure. She's kind of like a journalistic, like psychiatrist or something of that nature, but she's not exactly the most professional woman, and she has some dirt on her because she spoke out and got this person released, and they probably maybe were guilty of that, and she's kind of guilty of the crime. It's kind of that kind of deal, right? So she's kind of going to this institution to interrogate, or she approaches as an interrogation, but have an interview with this serial killer who numerous victims, and kind of talk about his life and everything like that. Simon sees himself as an ugly. In the mirror, he catches himself and he looks ugly. He sees these kind of entities that show up. With the reveal of that is generally kind of scary, but as all serial killers are in real life, they like to play games. Sometimes you can't tell if they're telling the truth or lying, and this is where reality starts to bleed in with fantasy. But then at the same time, his sort of old memories start to bleed in with possibly this doctor's reality and other people's reality. So it leaves this kind of weird limbo of where you don't necessarily know what's true, what's supernatural, what's not supernatural, and it's vague in that aspect to kind of be thought-provoking, I think, and it works really well. So I do think the acting is really strong in this film, and it's pretty much by the two main characters. There also are a couple orderlies that are pretty much villains in any kind of movie like this. If you look at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest or anything like that, or Terminator 2, the orderlies are just generally scumbags, and these two are horrible, just lowest common denominator, horrible people. We also have the doctor who runs the institute, and by these kind of three characters, you would think are the inmates running the asylum kind of vibe, right? That classic story right there. But yeah, so as the interviews start, at first he seems meek and shy, but as he kind of opens up, you learn more and more about him, and he has, of course, the generic stereotypical mother problems and mother issues, but they make the character sympathetic at certain points. You become almost sympathetic towards him, which is kind of always a hard thing to do, but I feel like it's kind of a nice little trick in this movie, right, to do that. And I think his performance helps, and I think the way he presents himself and the way it unfolds his story, I think, makes it all work really well. And again, it does these genuinely creepy moments where it will flash to his past, or the ugly will appear behind someone and it's kind of distorted and the camera moves. Done on purposely kind of artistic and strange way to kind of be jarring. I would say the movie is incredibly, works on that jarring kind of nature. But it has this, definitely these violent scenes in there and these crimes. And the blood is black. That was always a highlight that I remembered, and it still was very prevalent in this. It popped out. I mean, it still was one of those poignant kind of moments where you're like, oh, the blood is black here. It's definitely kind of symbolizing something in this weird way. I think that both the leads are great. I think she's really good as well. And the one thing I do want to compliment on this movie is the editing. Especially towards the end, because we're building to this climactic moment, this emotional moment, and where we're having the reality bleed with the fantasy, the past come with the present, and we have this great moment at the end, and it's just touching, and you feel bad for a serial killer. You don't want him to commit the acts and all that stuff, but you genuinely feel bad for the character. And the ending leaves it kind of up in the air as well. As far as the special features, we have a bunch of them, of a decent amount. We have a 4K restoration. It looks great. I was very impressed with this, and I'd seen this on DVD and VHS for years, so this upgrade was phenomenal. Auteur did a really good job with it. Original theatrical 2 stereo, and then 4.1 mix. Sound mix pretty good. Isolated score track. Then we have commentaries with actor Paulo Rotundo and Rebecca Hobbs, the leads, moderated by Nathaniel Thompson, one of my favorites, been a friend of the show. 1997 Radio New Zealand interview with Scott Reynolds, of course. He talks about, was he the one? I'm trying to think. No, that was a different interview. I listened to so many interviews, but interesting, good one. The Minute, a 1992 short film. A Game with No Rules, 94 short film. And then we have original trailer, The Ugly Visual Essay, that kind of goes over serial killers a little bit and brings it together. A collectible booklet. Yeah, I don't know who does the Ugly Visual Essay, but yeah, overall, super excited to have this one. I don't know if this is going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I know some people love Auteur films. I do love Auteur films, and some of the stuff they touch is pretty extreme, But I think that there's a lot of movies they do put out that I think will blend over and can be cross, Like I think that everyday horror fans should pick up The Ugly and stuff like Untold Story. I think that these movies have a broader, a fan base or broader, I guess, spectrum for people to like. And I think this is one. If you like serial killer films, I know I'm looking at the ratings and they're all over the place. People either like it or don't like it or kind of think it's okay. I'm a huge fan of this movie. And I've always been a huge fan of this movie, and I'm very excited to have this on Blu-ray in a great-looking scan. Excellent. Check it out, The Ugly. Next up, we have one from Radiance Films here, and this is Dancing Hawk from 1977, a Polish film here. And this is by the director who did the movie Through and Through, the black and white Polish kind of film about the, I guess, what would you call it, the killer couple. I think that was based on a true story, actually. And that movie is a freaking nightmare. This also has the DP from Angst, the 1983 serial killer movie, which is also a nightmare. So we have a lot of nightmare qualities in this movie here. There's a couple short films by the DP on here, which are insane, and you can see where he kind of got some of his style. Complete nightmarish stuff. So this movie is pretty straightforward in its plot, but its techniques and its filmmaking and editing and camera placement and all that kind of stuff like that are pretty unique, and they cause for a really bothersome, almost fever dream kind of thing, anxiety inducing. So we have this small town kind of Polish farmer post-war, and he's into like kind of like the socialist communist kind of movement and things of that nature, and he never thinks he's going to go anywhere on this farm. And he wants a better life. He wants to help society and move forward in life and not just be this so-called dullard where he lives. So he kind of escapes his small town village and ends up in the academy. And he kind of excels, moves forward and becomes this kind of scholar, and he ends up getting put in like a bureaucratic kind of position where he's making decisions about what should be torn down and what should be moved in that nature. And it's not happening quickly. I mean, like, we as a visual, we're seeing it quickly, but he's aging over time. So you see him leave his wife, and we have this flash to that, and we'll see him kind of find a new wife and have kids and all these kind of things like that. And it's kind of the journey of moving forward and being successful and moving up in life, but at the same time losing pieces of your life and losing pieces of your soul. And at what cost do you pay for all these things, right? So like the road to hell is paved with good intentions is kind of the generic term that I would say for this movie. And this character, he has these moments where you can tell that it's like a lot of self-reflection, but there's also these moments in the movie where we'll have this conversation with somebody where he has a conversation and it goes one way, and then we'll stay in the same camera setup and we'll have the same conversation. Maybe we'll fuck it up a little bit, change a line here or there, but it will continue that same shot, like as if these are all the possibilities that could have happened, or this is what really happened, or this is what he would do to get ahead in this situation, and possibility. All these different timelines and possibilities are what he's actually thinking, and it creates this really unpleasant, weird kind of fever dream feeling, like that you just are trapped in a situation. And I think that the way this was done was excellent. And at times they'll set the camera down and we'll be on a one shot for a long period of time, and we'll be looking through a door frame watching these characters have a conversation, or we'll watch them be having a conversation, and then we'll realize that we're at we'll cut to something else and have the same conversation. We're like, oh, we're at somebody's point of view here. This is really weird and bizarre, and it creates a lot of like kind of unpleasantries in the best kind of way when you're working on this kind of movie. There's a murder in here that I think, it's funny as you're younger when you watch films and people say this is bothersome or disturbing or extreme. You're like, oh, I expect it to be gory and nasty and visually see everything. But as you kind of get older, you realize that, sometimes it's just the ideas of things, as you can understand things a little bit more, right? Like if you were to watch something like Weishek or something like this, Dancing Hawk, where you're like people living their, lives in these trapped, horrible environments and things like that. You're like, this is more of a nightmare and more bothersome to me than any gore film now at this point in my life, because you can understand a little bit more in these kind of situations. But I really thought that the editing and the camera placement and stuff really worked well for this. The performances are good as well. The lead from Through and Through is also the lead in this one. But there's a Murder with an Axe that I thought was particularly unique and how it was done. It also is in 4:3, but it looks gorgeous now. And if you look at a lot of European movies, like what is that, Dead Mountaineers Motel? Like that movie, by all accounts, should be a beautiful widescreen, but some of these were probably made to broadcast on TV, or it's just the style that they were made, or that's just stock of film they had, or camera lenses they had, whatever. You know what I mean? These certain reasons, these limitations, or the reason they're doing it. Maybe it's artistic. But I thought Dancing Hawk was really good, and this one also has mixed reviews, as I can see why, because it's nuts. They definitely say it was inspired by Citizen Kane here, right? Well, this character that starts off with good intentions ends up a horrible person and lives to regret his life. We have a 4K restoration interview with with critic Carmen Gray, which is good and straight to the point and kind of talks about a lot of the stuff I talked about, just probably better and more in depth. 2 short films by Zabrkanu Rabarakski, and they're wild and weird, man. Like cartoon, one is partially animated and one's kind of a point of view Evil Dead style thing. Bizarre booklet featuring new writing by scholar Pietri Galativski. Polish, hard language, guys, but I would recommend this. If you've seen stuff like Femrock from Radiance Films or Through and Through, this is the kind of movie I'd say you're into. Or Wyshek is another one that I would kind of compare it to. These movies where you watch somebody just kind of lose their place in society, or society's completely crumbled in a weird way. But Dancing Hawk, good stuff. Okay, we're going to cover one from Visual Vengeance, and this is from 1994, originally made in 1999. Not really released until 94, and this is a Polonia Brothers movie shot on Super 8. This is Saurians, and this is, I think, the second one that was ever released. I know that the Polonia Brothers, John and Mark Polonia, made a lot of movies like Church of the Damned and stuff like that. That never really got releases until more modern. SRS put a lot of those out, and some of them I do actually enjoy that I've watched. A couple of them not so much. The Polonia Brothers' first feature film that got released was Splatter Farm, which became kind of a cult SOV movie. But Saurians is completely different than Splatter Farm. No real gore, a little bit of gore. But so basically there's 2 versions of the movie on here. There is the original, never released on VHS, Ray Dawn tape that was sent to them, but never got finished or put out because the company went out of business. 55 minutes, uses more stop motion than the version that everyone knows. And then we have, I think, a 70-minute version, which is the version I guess everybody kind of knows. This movie reminds me a lot of the Tempe movie, Galaxy of the Dinosaurs, which is probably made roughly around the same time, shot on video, with Tempe classics like Tempe classic actors like James Black and Tom Hoover. Now that movie I watched a couple times. I have a little VHS there of Galaxy of Dinosaurs. This is very much in that vein, but this is shot on Super 8. So the Polonia Brothers, of course, make super low budget movies. I think that people can appreciate their their love for cinema and their never dying spirit to make these things. And I think that will watch their older films, but as we get into newer low budget movies, it's not really my jam anymore. I watch some here and there, but the Polonia Brothers' new stuff has not really caught my eye. Now I did watch a few of their old movies and stuff, and Saurians, how I say about this, Visual Vengeance does these great releases of these movies that aren't always so great, but they definitely have a cult appeal and a fan base. So like I said, this one follows a story. I don't even remember how they get back in time. I'm probably mixing it up with the other movie on here. But, oh yeah, there's a kind of a construction site and a big hill's blown up and a couple dinosaurs come out. I believe a Stegosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus. And I think it's Mark Polonia is the more driving force behind this one, as John was working on another one at the time. And Polonia actually stars in it. And there's basically a love interest. His real life wife stars in here with him. And she was pregnant at the time they were making this. So they kind of try to survive these dinosaurs. And there's, of course, a dinosaur fight at the end. It's not incredibly memorable. The dinosaurs aren't stop motion in this version. They're kind of just like toys and puppets. They don't look very great. The ADR is pretty rough because, of course, with the Super 8, it's incredibly loud. Even though it records sound, they couldn't use any sound, so they had to ADR themselves. And Polonia is the only one that ADR'd himself. So everybody else is ADR'd by someone else. The sound comes in really bad. It's really cheesy. And as far as the Polonia Brothers movie is concerned, I don't know if I could recommend this one. If you're more of a slasher gore enthusiast, then I would stick with those ones. This one has a little bit of gore, and it's kind of a novelty that it's a low budget not SOV, but damn close to it, Super 8 dinosaur movie that is super dirt cheap. It was edited on a tape, of course, and it's a new tape master because they don't have the original Super 8 elements here. But so as far as the features, we have of course, SD master from original tape, commentary director Mark Polonia, moderated by Visual Vengeance crew, and I believe that is Rob Housechild or Houseman. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He basically runs Visual Vengeance Wild Eye. And Matt D'Alessandro, guy who always went to Wasteland. I probably said his name wrong. Really sweet guy. Loves his low budget movies as well. And they do a commentary in all 3, both versions of Saurians and the Dinosaur Chronicles. So that's nice to hear them come back for all 3 of them. And they know, it's just crazy to hear how much information that they all have about the independent movie scene and releases and things of that nature and all the day players and big players within it. But they know a lot. The making of Saurians, which has interviews with Polonia and his wife, and it's relatively short and good information on that one. Saurians location visit, actor Todd Carpenter interview. I believe that is the kind of crazy guy in this one. Kevin Lindermuth interview, who's also a filmmaker himself, Vampires and Other Stereotypes. He talks about helping him out with this kind of, I guess you'd say like Yellowstone footage for the dinosaur kind of stuff, and he helped out on the alien invasion movies. Saurian stop motion outtakes, Saurian Super 8 raw footage, alternate never before released Ray Don home video version of Saurians, which he actually prefers, Polonia says. Commentary track by Ray Don version with director Mark Polonia and the Vengeance crew. Bonus film, The Dinosaur Chronicles 2004 commentary track with Mark Polonia. And the making of Dinosaur Chronicles. Dinosaur Chronicles was a movie that they didn't complete. They took some Brent Piper stop motion, that movie he didn't complete, and kind of took another movie and kind of Frankenstein this thing together, and it ended up on the Galaxy of Terror 4-disc set kind of deal, those low-budget discs and everything like that. Not necessarily a great-looking movie, too, but the stop motion's cool, and you got some hand puppet stuff going on. But then we have Folded Poster, Saurians Trailer 2, Visual Vengeance trailers, of course, the whole slew here. So if you like the movie, then it's not really had a nice release for years, so check it out. It's a nice release of a movie that I can't wholeheartedly recommend, but when you watch stuff like Saurians, when you pop it in the Polonia Brothers or SOV or low-budget Super 8 movies, you kind of know what you're getting into, and some of them appeal to me and some do not. Okay, I decided to watch this one because a movie from '83 got me in a game of death kind of mood, and this is from 1965, and this is Elio Petri, who did A Citizen Above Suspicion and A Quiet Place in the Country, both really good movies. A Citizen Above Suspicion is like a masterpiece level movie with Gian Vellante, and this one here has Marcello Mastroianni and Ursula Andress in it, two big stars, especially Mastroianni, and this is the 10th Victim. This is a Kino Blu-ray. I had the old Blue Underground one as well. So this one I had heard only good things about for years, so I decided to finally pop it in. Great director, great cast, great story. It comes from a short story, The Seventh Victim, by Robert Sheckley, I believe is his name, and he was a sci-fi comedy kind of writer. Did a lot of through the 50s up to the 70s, kind of worked on that stuff. But yeah, this story here kind of way ahead of its time. This is a weird story. It's definitely a romantic comedy game of death movie, sci-fi movie. It takes place in the future. And now, hopefully, I did read the story, so like I don't mix up the story and the book. What comes from that? But so what we have here in this one, we have this game of death where you could sign up for, and you basically what happens is you're a hunter, then you're a victim. You're a hunter, then you're a victim. And if you're a hunter, you got to track down this person and kill them. And basically the victim does not know who the hunter is, but they are well aware that somebody is hunting them. And once you get 10 victims, once you get 10 people, you kind of retire, or you retire at that point in this world. In the book it's a little different. But you retire at that point. So Mastroianni is really good at this. He's I think on his 6th or 7th, and it opens up with Ursula Andress, and it's this great chase scene. And it's really funny because they're chasing each other, shooting, and one guy's shooting at her. And a cop stops, and this is the kind of satire or totalitarian society that these people live in, which makes it comedic, very very pure Paul Verhoeven kind of style thing, right? Where the cop says, "Well, did you got a license for that?" Okay, shows him his license, lets him continue shooting. People are worried about double parking and getting tickets and stuff like that when they park in this world when they're on their way to kill people, right? They don't want to get a double parking ticket, but they're allowed a license to kill, if you will. But this is pretty much abolished wars and violence, right? Because people can do this. Hey, think the Purge, rip this kind of idea off, right? But so Ursula Andress kills this guy in a really unique, fun way, and definitely Austin Powers lifted from that. They say so in the commentary, and I definitely they do actually. The people from Austin Powers, I guess, admitted it, but they do. And Ursula Andress is going to work now on her 10th victim, which is this big giant thing. Only 15 people have ever gotten this one, but she draws out Mastroianni. Great actor from, of course, La Dolce Vita, and what else? There's a couple other ones I've seen him in that are really great. Radiance Films put out Elephant, and a couple movies. He's just a great actor. Ghost of Love, which is kind of an underseen movie, haunting ghost kind of story deal, but just a great actor. So basically, what happens is she realizes, he knows he's being hunted, and he has these women problems. He has a wife that's working through a divorce in Italy. Divorce is really hard to get through still, right? And he has a girlfriend, but when Ursula Andress enters the picture, she's made a deal on the side with an advertising company, because all this stuff is about advertising, right? Another kind of thing that Paul Verhoeven would definitely do, right? Where it's all about advertising and making money from these things. So everybody wants to be involved and make a buck. So for her 10th kill, she has her crew that's following her around, including Mickey Knox, to try to figure out this whole thing and set it up to where she can make this elaborate Ming tea kind of advertisement while she kills Mastroianni. But her doing this, she kind of has to play this game with him and lead him on and make sure that he doesn't catch on. And they start to kind of have some sort of connection, right? Are they in love? Are they going to betray each other? A lot of comedy of kind of airs happens towards the end of the movie that gets absolutely ridiculous but fun and playful, and it's hilarious, and it has this biting satire, right? The idea that these people are just trying to kill each other, but they're going to get in trouble for parking tickets or that nature, and there's advertisements within it, all this kind of stuff like that just it hits right, it hits brilliantly. I thought this was a great movie. I thought it was an intelligent film. It's shot in Italy, of course, because that's where Mastroianni is at. Opens in New York, so it has a bunch of locations and stuff, and they open this whole weird kind of world that you can imagine. Excellent movie. Really happy to watch this. Love this kind of stuff like this. As far as the commentary, it's by Howard Berger, Steve Mitchell, and Nathaniel Thompson. Always good there. Nathaniel Thompson, always great. And then we have Elicio Petri, subject for further research, featurette by Roberto Liccicargo. You know what's funny is I listened to this commentary, and I don't remember. I feel like it was someone else, and I listened to him at work too. I feel like it was not them. Like, I feel like Troy Howarth was on this commentary, or am I just crazy? Am I just a crazy person? I have to double check, but I remember the information coming through. I listened to so many commentaries, like I said, but I too remember hearing Troy's voice in a commentary this week. Maybe I'm just crazy and that's a misprint, or they're wrong, but I really truly believe I was hearing Troy's voice on. Maybe I've just blended Nathaniel Thompson and Troy's voice into one. But as far as Elicio Petri, subject for further research, featurette by Roberto, I can't say that last name, Luca Gargo, with Paolo Pragoga Petri, wife of Elio Petri, and author, film historian Kim Newman. Good stuff. You can watch it in Italian or English. Theatrical trailer for U.S. and Italy. Great release. Looks good. I never get a chance to watch my old Blue Underground, so I can't compare them. But excellent movie. Highly recommended. Check it out.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
What's it like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
What the fuck was that?
It's gone.
God blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky!
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime, loved by many women. He might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel?
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary? You bet. Really? Yeah.
Get the Videodrome! Long live the new flesh!
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready?
Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
Now I'm starting this one off because the last movie has a direct connection to it. This is The Prize of Peril, and it's another game of death movie. Maybe some people, it's not horror enough. It's horror enough for me. And this is actually based on the same, the author of The 10th Victim or 7th Victim, Robert Sheckley, actually wrote The Prize of Peril as well in, I think, maybe the 50s, if I'm not mistaken, or the 70s. I think it was the 70s, but The Prize of Peril. So here we go. And this predates The Running Man, which was written, I think, in the 80s. It predates The Running Man by, of course, Stephen King, and it definitely predates a lot of these other game of death movies. And while comparing this again with The 10th Victim, you can see how ahead of time this sci-fi writer was, Robert Sheckley. So The Prize of Peril. I actually listened to the story on this one. It's a bit different. I actually think the movie does a really good improvement on it, to be honest, and I think it hits a lot of the points. But it is a French film, and it has a couple familiar faces I think people would recognize. The lead actress in here actually is in the next movie I'm going to talk about, The Beautiful Prisoner. Good performance. And the lead guy in here is in, I can't remember. My memory's getting so bad. But he's in a French kind of crime film. But the main host here, kind of of course, Richard Dawson character in this one is played by Michael Piccolo, but he's in Python 357, which is an excellent kind of cop movie, thriller kind of mystery film, which I would really recommend. And he plays basically the host of this show. Great. So we're in the future here, and like The Running Man, we're in a world where there's the show The Prize of Peril. And it is essentially a show where somebody signs up for it. They have to try out for it, and they get there. And they have to survive 8 hours with 5 hunters who are also picked for the show. 5 people from everyday life that decide they want to kill somebody, and they're going to track this person down and kill them. And that's kind of the show. If they live the 8 hours, they get $1 million. And if they don't, of course, they die. But everybody signs off on their death certificate. Says, basically the whole law has changed so you can freely commit suicide. And that's kind of what we have going on here. The hunters, one of which is the butcher from Delicatessen. Great performance here as well. But yeah, so in the opening we kind of see how this world works, and again it's hilariously full of satire. You see the business executives arguing amongst each other who they're gonna pick, the lineups and all this kind of stuff like that, which is funny because I just watched all that jazz, and like in the opening he's having the tryouts. It's kind of like that with all these people being discussed who's gonna actually go on this game, this death kind of game hunt and stuff like that. In the book he has to work his way up through the bunch of different series and stuff like that. But the idea is, right, they'll be telling about these this show where somebody's going to be killed, but then they'll be like, and remember, we donate all this money to so much like that. They're telling you all this fucked up. You're basically a show, murder for entertainment, but at the same time they're doing the world a better place. But what happens is this guy does not plan on losing. He does not plan on losing at all. And of course, people do help him. And when one thing is revealed to him, he decides that he's not going to play the game fair anymore. And bodies start to pile up. And the movie ends in actually the most realistic way it could, in a very dark note, but a very, not incredibly dark note, but a realistic note as well. There's some great, hilarious, dark moments in this movie. I absolutely love this. And it's funny because, we had The Running Man, right? Based off, the Running Man book. But the Running Man movie is way more like Prize of Peril than it is the Bachman book, the King book. I've read that book, and that book is, it has similarities to this movie, which is a book that was written before it, I believe, from the 70s. So it's strange. It's very, very strange. You know what I mean? And I think The Prize of Peril is the movie that gets it best. I think they understand human nature most in this aspect, and I think it's the thing that's probably come more to fruition than anything, right? How people, when they interview the killers, all of them stand up there, and they say, why do you want to kill somebody? And they're so blunt and honest about it, And I feel like we've hit that point in society now where people don't even have to act like they care about other people. People are like, I don't give a shit about anybody but myself. I'm out for myself. And that's kind of where that idea, right? These people up there and they talk and they say everybody else kills people, the government, the unions, who gives a shit? I don't care. And somebody's just says, well, I always felt like killing someone, but I don't want to get in trouble. And it's just like, Jesus, this is sick. But it's an intense movie. But at the same time, it's got this biting, dark satire, which I absolutely loved. And I love that it's shot outside. It feels very I guess more realistic. And I'm a huge fan of The Running Man. Everybody knows that. It's a goofy, silly movie that I absolutely adore. And Arnold wanted to make that movie much more serious, I think. That they were talking behind the scenes and stuff like that. But maybe he was looking to make something like The Prize of Peril. And this movie is 100% Running Man, I think, actually did get somewhat in trouble for it, or they definitely admitted to lifting from this movie, and it doesn't make The Running Man a worse movie for it. But I thought this was a spectacular movie, and I don't think I've seen too many people talk about it. Studio Canal I distributed it or owns the rights to it, so maybe we'll see it from Kino or Screen Factory, or somebody that has a connection with Studio Canal. I mean, 10th Victim was also Studio Canal, so it's interesting to see that. I would love to check this one out on a nice 4K or Blu-ray. It definitely deserves it. Really well made, well acted, great characters, full of familiar faces too. Most of the people in here, you're like, oh, I recognize that person. Have you seen any French crime films or anything like that? But just great stuff. Love it. Good stuff. Highly recommended. Okay, the next one here is from Olive Films, and this is The Beautiful Prisoner by, how do you say this, Alain Robbe-Gret? I always say French terrible. Somebody else help me on this, and I'll try not to say it wrong again. He's a pretty infamous cult director. He did a bunch of movies in the 70s, which I have a slew of his movies. Kino put out a lot of them. And this one, it reminds me a lot of the Iron Rose by John Roland, for you guys, your kind of nightmare logic dream horror fans out there. And this is an interesting one. You see the lead here is also in The Prize of Peril. And yeah, this is an oddball movie here. I don't even know how to go about it, but it's definitely incredibly stylized. Film noir kind of choices, also that nightmare kind of dream logic where it kind of bleeds into possibly, vampirism or all that kind of nature like that, or basically premonition horror, if you will. But our lead character is hired to go on this mission. He's supposed to find somebody and tell them, give them kind of a message basically, and move on. But while he's doing it, he ends up coming across this beautiful young girl at a club, and some strange things happen, and it's very stylized, and he ends up finding her in the middle of the road later on, like she's been injured, and he takes her home, and she kind of bites him on the neck from his understanding. He ends up taking her to this weird home, and it feels like everybody's like a cult member circling around him. And when he wakes up, he has this bite mark on his neck, and he really can't piece together exactly what happened. He ends up being like trapped in this bizarre room, waking up one night and it's this beautiful location, and then the next night it's just kind of run down place. But the kind of idea, right, that they were on this beach, and then later there'll be a picture of said beach, and you can kind of see the beach within the picture, like it's a reality within it. It's not just a picture. So incredibly strange stuff going on. These kind of characters coming in, and it's all leading to this kind of impending kind of doom, where the character is almost like the lead actor is like dual characters, and he's almost like investigating his own kind of death, like his doppelganger's death, but maybe it's him after all. It's that kind of weird movie, right, where you really can't exactly guess what's going on while you're watching it. It makes sense. Very, I don't want to say Lynchian, because that's what everybody says about a weird dream logic. No, I would say this is incredibly surreal, more so in the vein of something like a John Roland. Something a little bit not aligned with that. Not necessarily a complete like nightmare logic, but very soft and weird and dreamy and sexual. I really like this. I thought it was beautiful to look at. I thought that they used their style really well. A lot of motorcycle kind of stuff going on. But overall, it was fast-paced enough and interesting enough to keep my attention. Beautifully shot, good locations, and just good stuff. A lot of times they can fuck these movies up and they can become tedious or boring and just not connect with you, but I think that The Beautiful Prisoner is the opposite of that. I really enjoyed it. Good stuff. Okay, the last one from 1983 is going to be Alligator Queen, possibly Crocodile Queen, basically how it translates here. So Alligator Queen is, it stars this all right, the last one from 83 is Alligator Queen. Maybe the translation is Crocodile Queen. It's an Indonesian flick, as if you couldn't tell by the title, right? It's kind of in the vein of maybe like the Snake Queen movies, right? Where we have a woman that can transform into like kind of a different animal entity. Surprisingly, it doesn't star Susanna, because she'd probably be perfect for these kind of roles. But it's by the director who did like Grandmother something, which is another translation issue here, which is one from I think last year, which is a kind of decent horror movie here. But this one I had a lot of quality trouble with it, to be honest. So the quality trouble was really rough on this one, because essentially what happens is you'd have where am I looking at here? Like the audio would drop out because they're probably trying to monetize it. So like a music would come on and it would drop out and you'd miss dialogue. It's on YouTube. It was a mess. But so what we kind of get here is a lot of the Indonesian horror flicks are more like fantasy, superhero kind of style things, magical stuff. And that's kind of like their mixture, right? Like the warrior films or the Snake Queen movies. So they're not always necessarily straight up horror, although there are some like Satan's what is that? Satan's Doll, Satan's Slaves, of course, is definitely horror. More modern movies are too. But I was kind of shocked on this one. It did seem to have a little bit more nudity, or more explicit kind of nudity in it, which you don't necessarily see in a lot of the Indonesian movies, because it's like predominantly Muslim and they're pretty strict, I think, about nudity in their movies. So like I've seen like accidental nudity, but it's not something really that's in there. It's kind of like Escape from Hellhole, which is the 83 movie, which is a rape revenge prison movie where they skirt around like actually showing nudity, which is wild. So this one here, they kind of skirt around it, but they just blur it out, like where the Alligator Queen has like an army of women that change back and forth between crocodiles, and they'll like blur out their nudity and they're nude. So essentially that movie, from what I can gather, is like there's kind of two people trying out there to try to get this magical powers from the Alligator Queen. There's like a quartet of villains that kill their master and take his power, and they're on their way. And there's more like an altruistic kind of guy that wants to kind of stop these guys. They kind of go on this like mission where the bad guys get killed here and there. They kill each other. They have to fight each other to fight the Alligator Queen. People are changing bodies. People are shape-shifting. People are playing tricks. And they're learning magical powers. And of course, we have the big showdown at the end. I really couldn't make 100% ends meet of what the hell was going on due to the poor quality, but it was okay. I think if it was cleaned up and maybe a little bit better, and I could see all the subtitles, it would have been a little bit better of a film. But hey, Alligator Queen is just okay. It's okay. It's kind of expected in a lot of these Indonesian movies, but you see what you get, you know. Okay, the Patreon pick is from Nick Muan. This is Cut, Shoot, Kill from 2017, and I did not know really anything about this one. It's an independent horror film, and I popped it in, and I was like, okay, this concept kind of sounds a little bit interesting. We have this kind of obscure filmmaker. It kind of reminds me of the one that came out not too long ago, like with the Lost Music movies that came, Opus, and the other one, which was the Lost Music, which was the low-budget movie that I can't remember. But yeah, that kind of Opus, right, where we go out here, and they're this old kind of musical guy that's disappeared forever, but there's obviously something else going on. But so we have Cut, Shoot, Kill, where this actress who's struggling, she doesn't want to be in a horror movie, but she agrees to do it. She's meeting with this kind of strange director who's really intense, and she's going to be completely isolated. Within the first 10 minutes of her being on set, she's like, she should have left. And so that's like, if you can't get over that, then you probably won't enjoy the rest of the movie. These guys all seem to be incredibly close. They all seem to be a little bit backwoods, kind of rednecky kind of guys. Maybe it's something like Inbred by Alex Shandon, but not quite as extreme as that. Those guys are like cartoons in that one. But you got the whole film crew, right? The sound guy, the special effects guys. All these guys are a tight-knit family, and there's like one kind of actor that has established himself that kind of had a falling out, and now he's kind of doing these movies. So he kind of keeps to himself. So that's where we're at. We know immediately something's wrong, that this group is probably doing snuff films. The lead actors had died beforehand, but so you don't know to what extent or who is exactly bad and whatnot. It's not incredibly hard to predict what's going to happen. It's not a movie that tries to really hide it. The one thing that did surprise me is the producer of the movies pops up, and it's Henry Zebrowski from last podcast on the left. Henry Zebrowski's a really hilarious guy. While I was watching him, I still couldn't take him 100% serious in this one because his character is a little silly, a little goofy. He's got the kind of backwoods accent, but love Henry Zebrowski. Great podcaster, very funny guy. If you've seen Your Pretty Faces Going to Hell, a bunch of stuff like that. But he pops up in here. That was a nice touch. But my main complaint about this movie is by the time it picked up to where it was getting, I was invested in the end, but I had lost so much interest in the first two acts that I really wasn't invested anymore. And I was like, okay, let's kind of wrap this up. The concept is fun. The idea, it's kind of been done before to a certain extent, but I do like how they kind of shoot the film scenes, right? They're showing like the murders of the characters and stuff, and then they'll kind of like show you how it would be incorporated into the film, which is a nice touch. Overall, I think it's okay. I don't love it. I think the concept is decent. I really didn't buy the lead director, the villainous director. I just didn't buy him. I didn't feel like he belonged in here. I didn't like, it's not even his acting. I think it's just his character's written in a weird way that I just didn't buy. I just didn't buy it. And I know he's supposed to be like a military guy, so maybe that's like, he's supposed to have like post-traumatic stress disorder. But overall, I just kind of lost interest to a certain extent. The ending starts to pick up, but by then I was kind of checked out. Overall, not horrible, just not necessarily something I would give a wholehearty recommend to, but interesting concept nonetheless. All right, guys, let's get into those questions, comments, and concerns. First up, Mike SAV says it's Harlem Keeper, not Harlem Keeper. I kept saying Harlem instead of Harem, I guess, which is absolutely hilarious. We should just do Ilsa, She-Wolf of Harlem or something. That would be a classic one we could do in the one in the West. We can just do the whole Leprechaun route. D Gulag, I forgot that Charles Band was part of Wizard Videos. When I was really young and got into horror, I was always too afraid to rent anything from Wizard or Gorgon. They seemed forbidden at the time, LOL. Yeah, for sure. I remember somebody did say that the Redemption titles always look forbidden to them. Nick from Flanders, I ordered The House with Laughing Windows as per your recommendation. It just arrived. Can't wait to to watch and enjoy it. I'll probably end up buying Zed 2. Pupi Avati seemed like one hell of a director to me. I'm also currently enjoying Phantasm franchise. Pure nightmare stuff for me. That anger scrim really makes the hairs on your arm stand up, not to mention that voice, boy. He also did that intro to Wishmaster in the late 90s, if memory serves. Yeah, great one. Then what else do we have? Were you upset when they replaced Michael A. Baldwin and James Lee Gross for Phantasm 2? I was like probably 10 when I saw that, or like 12. I could care less, to be honest. I was just like, eh. Now, I mean, if I was an adult when I saw it, I'd probably be like, that's weird. I don't like that. But I was fine with it then. Was there a scary mortuary plus creepy mortician in your hometown? Not really. I just tended to not walk around mortuaries. I'm sure there was plenty of graveyards that look creepy, but they're cool. Do you have a favorite favorite dark time travel movie? I can't decide between 1960s The Time Machine and the Malcolm McDowell David Warner classic Time After Time. I like both of those movies. I'm trying to think dark time travel movie. There's so many time travel movies, and I'm sure that I'm just basically forgetting some of them. Even The Butterfly Effect, not necessarily a time travel movie. It is kind of, but I like that one too. So I don't have a choice. I really like The Time Machine though. That's a good one. Till next time, show God willing, and remember that charming tall man's wise word. Careful what you look for, you just might find it, of course. Movie Junkie Reviews, 84, very nice. Did Project on Helter Skelter as a teen. Great TV movie. Oh, different movie here. Not the Helter Skelter with Charlie Manson here. This is an Asian film, but I definitely need to see that Helter Skelter with Steve Rail's back. What the flick? It'd be cool to meet Brink Stevens and Jeff Lemire. Just talking about Wasteland. I'm going to Texas Frightmare Memorial Day weekend. It's awesome because it's the weekend of my birthday, and it's got a pretty awesome lineup. And then there's Steve-O. The last few years, David Arquette has been there, but it's hard to meet him because all the Scream fans. Scream is okay, but I'm more of a fan of the Tripper. I feel you. I understand. Nick Crops. Ew, let's go early. Hope you are doing well. Thank you. Way Up 2 gives me a thumbs up. Then we have Ken Coakley. I hear that Rob Zombie sabotaged Halloween 2 because of the threats of hiring another director. Zombie wanted the 2000 film to be a standalone film. It would seem so when you see the finished project. Female dialogue in both films was written by Zombie himself, while Deborah Hill wrote the female dialogue for Carpenter. Scene in H2 when Laurie comes to start her shift at that place, the girls opens their mouths and refer to Laurie as Miss Too Coolio for Schoolio. I get douche chills in my arms. Then when they dance around to kick out James by MC5 just for the sole reason that MC5 vocalist Rob Turner yells out, "Kick out the jams, motherfuckers." I also didn't get why Laurie was living in fear of Michael Myers, the serial killer, but had a Charles Manson poster hanging over her bed. The band at the concert or party, while I like their name because of the Hammer reference, had too much screen time. Also, the guy dressed like Vincent Price in Madhouse was played by Jeff Daniel Phillips, of course, yeah, whose Rabbit and Red Lounge bouncer characters kill off by Michael earlier in the film. He does dual roles there. Also the same guy from Lizard Samuel. I can never remember his name. I don't know if it was a blooper or it was an actor. The two roles, like the guy in Friday the 13th Part 2, is impaled in Bay of Blood style, then reappeared as a customer rushing into the bar to get out of the rain. I also don't get how Loomis... It was definitely on purpose. I also don't get how Loomis was transformed into a prick after seeing what happened to those who were unfortunate to have crossed paths with Michael. I know that Zombie based that on Vincent Balagosi, but had it not been for Balagosi's book Helter Skelter, Manson might have been paroled at some point. The dream sequence in the beginning was exactly that. When Songs Nights in the White Satin by Moody Blues is on the TV in the hospital room, then minutes later on the TV in the security office, I knew it was a dream sequence because while the studio version is long, it wasn't that long. I also think that Brain Damage by Pink Floyd would have been more fitting. The lyrics "Lunatic is in my head" make sense. I did the surreal sequences in the film and the underlying thing of the White Horse. In 2010, they were supposed to be a Halloween 3D, but the plan was scrapped. Yeah, I remember that. You're right about people making too much fuss about Halloween Legacy. A lot of people who celebrate Halloween 4 weren't even born yet when it was released in 88. Most of my friends didn't like it. In fact, the original version was the only one that audience liked. My memory of seeing 4 for the first time was in a movie theater in 88. I was kind of antsy because after the movie I met with my friends to see Metallica. I saw 4 with a friend who got into a fight with 2 guys in a parking lot of the theater where we worked. I was on clock and he was going to get his check. A guy came in saying that he was hit by a car twice. Not only did he survive, he walked into the ambulance. So when Michael was hit by a car, my friend said, "Big deal. He went over twice and walked into the ambulance." His name was Dave, but we called him Jason after Voorhees. Yeah, good information, man. Good timepieces. I definitely have to get into this update. Again, I want to apologize for the mess of the fucking cameras. They're driving me crazy, but I'm going to let it ride because recording another hour of the same thing, I can't do it. I won't do it, and it won't be as good. But yeah, let's get into those update. All right, let's get into this update. First up, I want to show a couple of things that aren't movies. But this was dirt cheap, and I like to buy some of my favorite action figures or characters from movies when I was a kid. Not dirt cheap, but hey, $15. I wanted this Bosk. I'll put him on my shelf. It's just my favorite bounty hunter as a kid. And I don't have any of my Star Wars toys, so I grabbed that. And this one, although I would have liked to buy them all, and I don't buy action figures typically, the idea that there's a Captain Rhodes action figure, and I just had to have it. And he looks the best of the bunch. Sarah was there. She didn't look great. And I didn't see Bub, but then I saw him later, and I was like, it's already really late. But I think that the Rhodes character is just damn cool, so I had to grab it. I don't think the other ones look nearly as good. I'd love a Dr. Logan and a Steel, but I might pick up the other ones. But hell, that there's a Rhodes figure, I had to have it. So let's get into the movies. First up is from Severin. This is Gutter Auteur, The Lost Legacy of Andy Milligan. This has, what's that on it? Reading through the camera lens. The Degenerate. We have Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, The Degenerates. Oh, The Degenerate, The Life of Andy Milligan, The Degenerates, House of Seven Bells, Compass, Rose, and Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Andy Milligan is a very interesting, weird guy, and made some crazy-ass movies, so definitely pick that set up. And then we have the Antonio Margheriti box set here, The Jungles of Doom, the 80s adventure films. We have Jungle Raiders in 4K, Ark of the Sun God in 4K, and The Hunters of the Golden Cobra. I know Warbeck is in some of these. So this box isn't sealed, but the actual movies are sealed here. So, yeah, Indiana Jones of Italian action movies. Gotta love Antonio Margheriti. And then, of course, how can I leave this bad boy sitting there? Feeding Frenzy, the Italian Sharksploitation Collection. We got classics like Night of the Sharks, which is okay, Monster Shark, which is fun, and The Shark Hunter, Ennio G. Castellari, I believe, and Franco Nero stars in that one. These, again, they're sealed here. Nice little deluxe set there. Why not open this? I should have done with the other ones, too, but very cool. Yeah, but, I when I go to Wasteland and I see the sets, I don't pick them up all the time online, but I was like, I'm going to pick these up in person, why not? And last, but certainly not least, we have the Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee Collection, Volume 3. Love Christopher Lee here. What do we got? Beat Girl, The Hands of Orlac, The Virgin of Nuremberg, Arabian Adventure, A Feast of Midnight, and The Life and Death of Christopher Lee, 7-disc in a booklet, 1 UHD, 6 Blu-rays. Very fucking cool. Love Christopher Lee, one of the best to ever do it, one of my personal favorites. And then we have some other stuff, of course. We have December, used disc here, $5 out of print. Couldn't pass it up, picked it up. Anthology, a bunch of shorts on here. And then we have Visible Secret from Radiance Films, Hong Kong ghost story made in the early 2000s. This one is kind of harder to find when Radiance put this out, so I saw it at the Diabolic table and grabbed it. And we have some TerrorVision here. We got The Basement Horror Anthology, which this is the Blu-ray version, has a bunch of stuff on here. Swimming pool, zombie movie, Trick or Treat, Home Sweet Home. This had a deluxe edition on DVD and VHS back in the day, but I guess this version has even more stuff. And then we have Death by Dialogue. This is one of the City Lights pictures, I believe. Troma had this on one of their bulk DVD releases, and I heard this is actually kind of fun, so I picked this one up here. Ooh, Introduction to Creep Coins. So there we go. I got a couple more here, TerrorVision ones. Somebody bought they have these like sets. Well, they have like these mystery boxes, and they bought one, and they already had these titles, so I bought them from them for a good price. Some Guy Who Kills People. This is a fun movie. I remember really enjoying this one with Kevin Corrigan. Yeah, it's very fun. Barry Boswick in it. And then, of course, one that I've always had a fondness for, Chocolate Strawberry Vanilla. Picked this one up. I had the old Blu-ray already from Import, so I didn't grab this right away, but for the price, I picked this one up. And then what else do we got? I'll just throw the DVD in there. Motango, another $5 one here. I know this has a Blu-ray or 4K overseas, but I think this DVD is out of print here, and I don't know if the statesides are getting one or have one, but for the price, I decided to pick up The Mushroom People. Fun movie. And then we have Cocaine Stepdad, which I don't normally pick up indie movies, but this the guys were there and they're pretty funny, kind of lined up with humor. So I was like, we were quoting Tim Robinson all weekend, everybody was, and he definitely was picking up on it. Well, he knew the lines too, so I was like, yeah, this guy's probably funny, maybe my style of humor. And then we got Frankenhooker. Love this movie. Well, you know what? I like this movie. I wouldn't say love it, but I haven't seen it in a while. 4K from Synapse. I love this release. Looks great. I'm actually a bigger fan of Brain Damage and Basket Case, but I do like Frankenhooker. I'm due for a rewatch. And this came not from Wasteland, but Uncommon Valor 4K here. Always enjoyed this one. Great cast in that one. Fred Ward, Reb Brown, Tex Cobb, Patrick Swayze, Harold Sylvester, Tim Thomerson, Robert Stagg. That's right. And Gene fucking Hackman. That's right. Yeah, but that's my update. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're out of here. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, have a good one.